Welcome to District 32, immersion, inspiration for ambitious business owners with big dreams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lorraine, as you know, and I have the massive pleasure today of interviewing Andrew Ford of Ford and Doonan. How are you, Andrew?
I'm unreal. Thanks, Lorraine, and thanks for inviting me today.
Oh, look, we're always glad to have you on board. Andrew, you've spoken for a few of our events, and they are definitely up there in the most popular events with just your massive experience in business. You know, you've been in business now for how many years?
36 coming
36.
up too. Yeah.
Wow. So it's a lot of learning you've got there. You've got a lot of experience. You've made all the mistakes that we don't want to make. You've had all the wins, and you are Ford and Doonan is just an amazing brand. You are just winning award after award after award after award, and you have done for a long, long time, and particularly around the areas of customer experience and customer service. So that's definitely something to be proud of.
Yes, thank you very much.
And you always attribute that to your growth as well, Andrew. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And I've loved the journey of the growth, from the day one, really, when it started. And yeah, it's not always enjoyable, but overall it's been a great experience. And yeah, I love the challenge as much as anything.
You got to love the challenge to be in business, right?
Too true, too true.
As somebody says, it's uphill the whole way. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Just when you think you've made I'm there now, then something else will come out of left field that you didn't think about, or like COVID.
Yep. So look, I'm really excited to have you on today. We're streaming live, we're recording this. And what I'd just like to do is frame this interview for the people who are listening. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, why is your business not growing? You're doing the hard yards, you're working all the hours, you're putting all the sweat in, and you're just not growing. Then we're going to talk about, when should you grow and when shouldn't you grow? How to find out if your business is ready. We're going to talk about how you as the entrepreneur and the business owner fit into the picture. Mm-hmm. And then we'll move on to, if our business is ready and we're ready, what's next? Yeah. What steps do we take? And then we're going to talk about the valley of death, right? and how to avoid it. So let's get stuck in, Andrew. So first things then, we've been working for, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, and your business is just plateauing. It's not growing. Why is that? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, I think there's some questions you got to ask yourself. And the first one would be, without you, have you really got a business without yourself in it? So, most businesses, they say 96% of businesses in Australia are small or micro businesses. So, and they largely revolve around the founder and the owner. So you have to hold the mirror up to yourself and say, okay, would this business survive without me? Or is it really about me? Have I really got a well-paid job, or have I actually got a business? So I think that's the first step to identify. And another test of that is, how easily could you sell your business? Again, it's obviously going to be a lot more valuable if it doesn't revolve around you, and the opposite effect, if it does evolve around you, it's going to be worth a lot less if it's even sellable. And procedures, like how well are you documented? Like, is everything in your head? This is how we do things, and you verbalize everything if you've got some staff, or is it documented right out? So again, someone could pick up the manual and almost run the business. And does your spouse, your other half, play a significant part in the business, which typically they do in these small businesses? Again, that makes you a bit more vulnerable, less attractive for a sale for that test, because there's now two of you that the business revolves around that won't be there if it was to sell. So that's just a little snapshot to frame yourself. Okay, is my business really a business, or is it I've got a great, well-paying job out of this?
Yeah. And then once we've just defined that, and we realize we have got a business and we're plateauing.
Yep.
What are we looking out for, Andrew?
Okay, so I guess the next step would be is it ready to be scalable? And I've got a series of questions that we can go through now.
Okay.
That if you can ask yourself these and almost score yourself, it's going to largely come out with the end result on why you might not be growing. So firstly, how profitable is your business? So to grow a business, you really need profits, pretty obviously. Well, not necessarily obvious, but it's definitely true as far as I'm concerned. So obviously with profits, you need profits to be able to fund the growth. Be that you got to pay for marketing, got to pay for more staff. So if you're not already profitable as a small micro business, is it really going to get any more profitable by expanding? Often the question's no on that one. And following on from the profitability, have you got the money in the bank, or where are you going to finance this growth from? Have you got retained earnings in the bank? Or will you go and get debt from like an overdraft, which is a lot of people do grow like that. Personally, it's a little bit scarier for me because you're putting more on the line. So, but if you back yourself right up, and also what's plan B? Let's assume for the moment then that the business growth doesn't go as planned and it actually costs you money and you didn't grow and you're back to where you started. Will it ruin you, that move, or is it a calculated risk that you can come out the other side of it if it doesn't work?
All questions I'm sure we've all asked in our business journey,
yes,
without a doubt.
And continue to ask. So the next thing I'd look at is probably business controls. So we said, procedure manual. Is there a written one there, or is it in your head? We've already touched on that. And also you're going to find with any procedures, and this is one of the most frustrating things I've found in our journey, is that what procedure worked when you're size X, when you get to size Y, that procedure no longer works. So you're forever writing procedures and updating them to make them more relevant to the current situation. But if you've got nothing to even start from, no written manual, it's all in your head, it's going to put you behind the 8 ball as well. Then, of course, there's the financial reporting. What sort of financial reporting are you currently doing or getting at the moment? It should be at least monthly management reports. And honestly, Lorraine, I'm amazed at how many businesses, and quite significantly sized ones, what you call sort of small to medium, that don't get monthly profit and loss statements and balance sheets. Have you experienced the same thing?
Yep. And still, yep, it could be a multi-million-dollar business who just spend the money if it's in the bank.
Yeah. I really
if I've got money in the bank, I'm doing all right. I'm going to go on holiday if I've got money in the bank. But yeah, no real clarity on the key drivers of profit in the business.
That's right.
No clear clarity on what the percentage rate is of that gross or net profit. And I just get confused sometimes. If we don't know that information, then how do we know which levers to pull and where to go, because we don't know what's really working and what's not.
Absolutely true.
Very, very, very common. Very common.
And especially if your business has got different like divisions, let's call it. In our case, we've got a service division, a commercial, retail. We track obviously by that department's profitability as well, so we can see the profitability of any one department. So that would be a great little crystal ball to say, okay, well, this division's not that profitable. Let's not expand that one, but let's expand the one that's most profitable. Pretty obvious. But if you don't even know what's going on with your business, and even worse still, if your business isn't going as well as planned and you're relying on the bank balance to tell you that, it can often be very much too late. You go, oh, geez, we're not making money in my bank balance. Why isn't it growing up? As opposed to a monthly report where you can just see, okay, our overheads are getting too high now. We're not making money, or we're not making as much as we should. But without the management reports, you're really sailing blind. So, and it's not an expensive thing. Like, for example, on my little hobby business, the gym, I've got a bookkeeper that does my management reporting, and it might cost me $500 a month or something. It's not a big expense. And it tells us
love how
everything.
You say that, Andrew, my little hobby business. Just want to do when I'm looking for something to do. But yeah, it's not important, and it's crucial information. And I think sometimes we just don't place enough, especially as new business owners, our startups. We're just so focused on revenue. Revenue. Can I pay the bills? Can I pay the mortgage? Can I replace my salary? And then often people just continue on like that without that switch to, okay, well, how does that now become profit? And what are the profit aims of the company and the services we provide?
And of course, we've all got those dreaded quarterly BAS statements, and where you pay your superannuation. So there's a lot of hidden costs that don't show up necessarily even month to month unless you're doing proper management reports. If you're relying on the bank balance, looks like you've got plenty of money. You might go and invest in another car or something for the business, another asset for the business. But then you get, oh, geez, I've got to pay my BAS and the super, and suddenly you haven't got enough money in the bank. Yeah. So it's critical like that too. Yeah. Another one of the other key things to look at before deciding to grow, I'd say, is your debtor management system and then your debtor controls, because obviously bad debts, if they're not, they soon turn into bad debts unless you're managing those and someone's onto the debts all the time. So that's a key one. And also, again, if you're a small business, let's say it's yourself, or even if you've got 2 or 3 staff, the next step where you might have 5 or 6 staff is the HR side of things, human resources. Like, have you got onboarding procedures? Are your safety systems fully up to date and compliant? And often you can get away with a lot more when the business is small and there might be 1 or 2 employees, and you're very close to them, you know them intimately, and they know you very well. And it's sort of the business runs like that. But once you get more people, you lose that touch and connection, and that's when you've got to have HR systems, to do annual reviews and that sort of thing. You got any comment on that? Again, is that an area you see, Lorraine?
I'm just. You always think it's you've done that, now we can park it. We've written that process, we've got more onboarding, it's great, and you just don't realize that you always need 2 weeks every year just to review.
Yes.
At least just to review all your process, and then you don't realize until somebody new comes on and they don't know anything, and you don't find out that until 4 weeks later, like, oh my God, our processes are just not there. How can this person possibly hit the ground running?
Exactly right. And you quickly, hurriedly write that procedure, which is the way we all do it too. Yeah. As you identify the lack of it, you'll quickly fill up that hole.
Yep.
Another critical thing I think would be, if your business has stock, is, have you got good stock control? Like, is it, again, mainly in your head, and you look over that pallet system over there and, yep, we're running low on that particular widget, let's order some more? Or is it all an automated system and you're tracking where everything's going? Because once again, when it's small, it's quite easy to know where all the product's gone. But when it gets bigger and you don't know the people as well, is there any theft going on? Do they just lose it and don't tell you? And again, you can massive leakage of profitability through that avenue as well.
And it's much more common than we think.
Yes, it is, unfortunately.
We've all heard of someone, that happening in the business. And I've heard loads of things around stock control as well. I mean, we don't have stock to manage, but just, valuing the business. We don't often, I have seen many business owners don't include the stock that's on the floor. Or people are looking to grow and they're saying, well, I'm looking to double my business, but they actually don't have the capacity with machinery or stock or whatever it is to grow the business. So it just doesn't match up. And again, it comes back to that clarity around what have we got, what are our goals, what are the gaps.
Absolutely. And even as you touched on a moment ago, is your premises and warehousing big enough if you have got stock? Yeah. As you said, you got to A, pay for it, and B, you got to store it. And as we know, storage of stock and that can be very expensive these days in warehousing.
Without a doubt.
That's another trap. KPIs, or key performance indicators, they're something we're big on, and we make them very transparent at Ford & Dunham. We've got screens around the office with sales budgets and that sort of thing, and both individual people's sales budget and how far they progress towards meeting budget for the month, and then even departments one step up from that, how the whole department's going towards meeting budget. We find that powerful, Lorraine, that the staff can see where they're going and how their department's going, because otherwise you got to wait till the end of the month, and you might report to them at a monthly meeting.
Yeah. This
way it's day-to-day live data. And so many businesses, I think, could benefit from that, not just in sales, but, for example, if you're a tyre retailer, how many tyres we put on today, how many for the week, what's our target for the week? And just really focuses the staff and the management on achieving those objectives.
And I guess that really helps people to feel a sense of belonging, and that, what they're contributing is important to the business.
Absolutely. And we hear that all the time, don't you, from people that, I don't really make a difference to the business, I'm just sort of one of many. But everyone forms that cog in the gearbox, and without 1 or 2 people, the whole gearbox can fall apart. So everyone does pay, but often it's easy to make them feel inadvertently that they're not important. And I agree with you that this does help overcome that problem. Another point,
I learned it from you, Andrew, in your speaking before.
Yes. Another thing to consider is, how are you legally wise with your contracts and agreements and that sort of thing? Are they all up to date? Has a lawyer gone over all of that in the last year or two? Because things are often changing in that space as well.
Me personally, I've been nipped by this so many times, and that we have to have the contracts in place, and that's for employees, contractors, in terms of engagement for anything. I know I need to get this done, and then some will come back and bite you, and then you think, I just didn't get that signed, or I didn't go back and renew that, or and it just, kind of really big impacts by not having all your legals in place. And you just don't realize that when you're a new business either. I was told when I was starting up, you need a business coach, an accountant, and a lawyer, a really good coach, accountant, and lawyer. And I was, oh, well, whatever. I don't really need a lawyer. You find out pretty quickly you need a lawyer, a good lawyer on your team.
You do, unfortunately. And as you said, Lorraine, when you start up, you just don't know what you don't know. So don't dump on yourself for not knowing everything, because often the only way to learn is what you don't know is by experiencing it. And I know that for next time, and you learn the lesson once and learn it well.
Yeah.
And I guess insurance could tie in with the legal side. Have you got all your insurances up to date? Is your public liability enough? All those sort of things. And if your stock's increasing, have you got enough stock insurance for fire and or theft? So that can be a trap too if you've got carrying a lot of inventory. Okay, so I'm just grabbing my notes as we go through. All right, so, and very pertinent to this topic right now here in WA especially is, can you staff the growth that you need? Normally growing requires more people in your team, and can you recruit who you need at the right price, which is very difficult in WA at the moment.
It's a massive issue at the minute. Every event that we have, every meeting that we have, people are just absolutely screaming for quality staff. And that's anybody from, hospitality to trades to white collar. There's just such a shortage, and employees can say the price.
Exactly.
I say, so it's really, really hard. And I spoke to one of our clients up in Wangara, and she was saying that her business would be double the size it is right now if she could only find the staff or the trades to do the work. So the amount of volume of work that is coming, they just can't grow.
Ford & Doon's exactly the same, Lorraine. We're just selling way more than what we can install. So the lag time from order to actual installations now mid-April or something like that, which is unheard of. Normally we're starting to quieten down, but it's just it's not abating the sales, which is awesome. But it's so frustrating because we just can't generate the profitability we should be able to if we could just keep on put on more subcontractor teams or wages teams. But the people just aren't out there. And as you said, wages pressure is massive at the moment, because to retain the staff you've got, amongst many other things you'd look after them with, is obviously the pay rate they're on.
And that's a whole other interview on hiring and retaining the right staff, right?
Indeed. Yep. We're struggling with that too. But so I guess the first question when you're growing is obviously, have you got excess work at the moment? So if you have got just the right amount of work, where's the new work going to come that's going to fuel the growth? So that would be marketing. If you haven't already got an excess of work, what's your marketing system? Have you had to do a marketing plan and spend much on marketing so far, or has it all been quite organic, word of mouth, which many small businesses start like that? But once you sort of hit the accelerator, you need to have a decent marketing plan that you can almost be confident enough to be able to turn on, bring in the extra inquiries, leads, customers, and be able to turn it back off or slow it down so you can gauge the inflow of new customers. So if you haven't been doing much marketing now, you've got a steep learning curve in that area too.
And when you're talking about marketing, you're covering advertising in there as well? Are you bringing them together? Yeah.
Correct. Lumbering them together. Yeah. So obviously this website is your website, a really basic one that you did on Wix, and it got you up to this point, and you need a much better one that's going to cost obviously some more money and time to invest into it. That's I think everyone would agree websites are basically the cornerstone of businesses now as marketing plans.
And I think as well, Andrew, I've been having some conversations with people recently who might have taken a hit, on their business, or they're waiting to see what the environment is going to bring with COVID, with, potential people sick and staff sick and people not wanting to go out. And our message has been, if things are quiet, then you have to double down. You have to double down on marketing. You have to double down on sales. You have to be meeting twice as many people. We can't be complacent there and wait to see what's going to happen. We have to double, triple, go faster, harder, rather than we can't take the foot off the pedal.
No, it's so true. And that's such a common thing here, isn't it? When things get a little bit quieter and a bit tougher, where are we going to save some expenses? We'll take it out of marketing. But as you rightly put, Lorraine, that's often a mistake in that most serious way.
Indeed. A few lessons there for people. Yep.
Yes. And the other thing to consider is IT and software. What's your position in the business right now with your IT? Is it just a matter of buying a few more computers, which is pretty easy to do? Or do you need software to help you take the next step? Is the software that you're using now might be Excel sheets and it works fine for a small business, but you need to go to a much more complicated system to be able to put those controls in place. So that's another important thing to look at.
So what you're really saying there, Andrew, with all those traps is we need to look at each of these individual areas and see where there's anything that's going to dampen our growth. You know, if we don't have that automation, if we don't have the systems, if we don't have the team, then saying that you're going to grow your business really is just a pipe dream. You know,
correct. And I think that's why so many businesses, they talk about wanting to grow, but they're just not taking, or they don't know how to take these basic steps first as foundations before you can grow the business.
And what about the business owner? You know, what does the business owner need to be?
Yes,
we talk about all those traps. What about the entrepreneur themselves?
We probably should have started with this, really, because it's all about the person, isn't it? That the person who's running and owning the business at the moment. What do they really want? And a lot of us say we want growth, but are we prepared to make the sacrifices necessary? And again, I always talk about the E-Myth, I have a mental block then. The E-Myth book and tapes, and it talks about the three personality types of the manager, the technician, and the entrepreneur. And I think identifying which one of those you may be will make a big difference to how much you want to grow, really, or your ability to grow. Because if you're the technician who loves doing the job, be it a jeweler or whatever the business is, a lawyer, if you love doing that actual work, that's what you really enjoy. By growing, you're probably not going to do a whole lot less of that and a whole lot more managing. And that managing may not be your thing. Or are you a great manager and you can work for a bigger organization and be very efficient and effective as a manager, but have you got those other skills and traits that you need to have, which is really the entrepreneur trait, to be able to take your business to the level that you want it to go? So largely what we're going to talk about next is it's about you, and the person and their traits.
Yeah, and I think that is, we often see with business owners, they come in as the technician. I'm a really great plumber, or I'm a really great HR specialist. This is what I love to do. And that is all they want to do, but they don't realize, especially in the beginning, 80% of your time in a small business has to be in sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Until you build that up. And then even when you do build up some capacity, you see owners sometimes making a choice. Do I want to continue being the technician, or am I fed up being the technician? I just want to do sales 100%. And sometimes that's easier for them to make that transition and go out and do the sales, the marketing, the networking, and bring somebody else in. But more often they still want to be the technician. And the big gap there is that sales and marketing, and the gap between the knowledge of a new business owner and the sales and marketing arena is enormous. It's huge amounts of learning and implementation, all the automation, the contact programs, the CRMs, the websites. Who am I? You don't even know who you are and what you do to put on a website, first of all. And it can be really overwhelming, the sheer volume of sales and marketing activity that needs to be done and learned.
So true.
For a new business, it's hard.
And managing the people, if you've suddenly got staff, they need training, they need support. So you're getting less and less time to do that technician role that you may enjoy. And if that's an important part of, or underwriting a lot of the income of the business, you have to plan around that to say, okay, well, I'm not going to be really contributing much gross income into the business anymore because I'm doing all these other things. Who is going to replace it? You might need two people to do what you were doing yourself.
That's another thing we overlook.
Isn't it, Jack?
If it's your business, you're going to work fast. You're always going to work at 110%. Other people don't necessarily work at that pace. Yeah.
No, that's so true. And as we just touched on, you need the extra time to devote to growth too, because if you are trying to wear all these hats, when are you going to spend the time to do the other things we've already identified, it can only be really after hours. So by growing, you're definitely making a commitment to spending more time in the business, not less, for a good chunk of the next 1, 2, 3 years until the business gets to that next level.
Do we always have to do that, Andrew? At years 10 and 15, are we committing to working in the evenings for the next 5 decades?
It's probably the greatest myth, isn't it, Lorraine, that working for yourself gives you freedom and your life back.
Yeah.
It often does the opposite, actually.
There's more time, money, and energy.
Yeah. It's the greatest myth of all. I'm going to be my own boss. I'll work when I want to work. But no, you don't. You work when the business tells you to work and they need you.
That's right.
And I think going back to the technician manager is, can you let go of doing, you might be a perfectionist and you like things done this way, and that's what's made you successful up to this point, is that care and that skill level. But now you're going to have to entrust that with staff, and they are unlikely to have the same skill level or the same care factor. So can you see something done in your business that isn't the way you would exactly do it, but it's not done incorrectly, but it's just not done exactly the way you would do it? Can you live with that, or is that going to drive you so crazy that you're going to go in and fix it? And that means you're never going to be able to grow because you just can't let go.
It certainly knocks the perfectionism out of you. Yeah.
It has to be. You have to be nearly good enough, I suppose, not perfection. Once you got the team doing it, sometimes they'll surprise you, but generally that's how I've discovered it over the years. And I guess another question to ask yourself is, why do you want to grow? Is a really good question that probably should ask yourself way back in that conversation. And generally, the 3 reasons I can see is to make more money, both in a yearly salary or dividends, and also creating a bigger asset. Normally, as the business grows, it's often worth more money. So you're working for a greater payday at the end of your retirement, or whether that may be. Are you doing it for the challenge? Do you just like doing the challenge, which is a lot of my driver? And you have to be honest, a lot of the time it's an ego thing as well. You want to be, a bigger player in your sector. So, and often it's a mixture of all 3, which is probably myself. And I'd probably class myself as all 3 of those would be my drivers. And also, can you ride a downside? We did touch on that earlier, but not all the time does the business plan go to plan and you grow and everything's going well. Often you'll start to grow and then it won't go so well. Are you a worrier and a panicky? Will this cause you to not sleep and have ulcers and all that sort of thing? Or are you pretty calm? You can sort of switch off at the end of the day. Business is business, private, which is easier said than done, I know. But that's something else to consider, though. If you're a real worrywart, then you're in for a journey and a half.
Oh, I'm sorry that I'm just imagining how many business owners out there have got ulcers right now. Yep. In a nice, caring way, I'm saying that. But it's if you let it, it'll just have you. Yeah, don't worry.
Absolutely, it'll suck you up and won't necessarily spit you out.
Yeah,
until it's too late.
I think this is an interview on how why you shouldn't go into business there, Andrew. We're going in there.
It's turning into that, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just wanting anyone to go for it. And what I will say, I'll say it now, is that being a business person you don't have to be that brilliant at anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a normal person. I'm not super intelligent. I'm not super good at what I used to do. I was better than average probably at both of those. But really, it just comes down to how hard you want to work and how determined you are to not give up.
Yeah. Drive.
Yeah, but it's open to anyone, and you don't have to be anyone special. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess the next thing I was going to touch on was, so you've decided you're ready to grow your business, what to expect next in the journey. So more work, not less. I think initially that 1 to 2 to 3 years, prepare yourself for longer hours, not less hours.
Yeah.
You're going to be out of your comfort zone. You're in new areas of business that you've never been in before, and you just wing it, make it till you sort of fake it till you make it sort of scenario. Yeah. And sometimes I remember over the years, I was in situations and I think to myself, how the hell did I get in here? Yeah. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about really, or the subject, be it illegal or whatever the matter may be. And which takes us to that imposter syndrome too. I think we all would suffer at different times of our lives, business lives, of imposter syndrome too, where you just go, am I really meant to be here? Is this really me?
Oh, that absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So it comes back to out of that comfort zone, flying by the seat of your pants and and financial pressure and concern, and being able to deal with that, not let it wreck your life and your family and your marriage and everything else.
Because it can.
It can, for sure.
It can.
What
It
else?
comes back, yeah. I think there's a lot of you coming back down. What you're saying is, you really have to have that, because often we don't have endless amounts of money to keep us going. And it is that financial pressure, right? Especially if you've got a family to provide for, you've got staff to look after, you might have 10 staff, you might have 100 staff to look after. So that you would need to be superhuman or unhuman, not to worry about those things, particularly in those early years and that financial pressure. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. We don't all businesses go through the same, or most businesses go through the same. We don't arrive after 6 months or a year and you're making profit and you're cash flow positive all the time. It's just not the typical journey.
No, it's not the typical.
Yeah, not at all. It's so yeah, maybe we can do some inner peace coaching for business owners with ulcers. Yep.
Start meditating.
Big fan of meditating, just to cope with the stress. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have last couple of things I'd suggest that you be ready for is what works now won't necessarily work later. So we've touched on it earlier as well, but systems and people that function perfectly well when you're this size, but you're this size now, and those systems aren't going to be there and they'll fall down. So be ready for that. And managing people, you've got to be a good people manager, I think, to have a growth type business, because it's all about the people.
100%. And I love a couple of the cliche sayings around there. If you're in business, you're in a people business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in sales, you're selling to people. If people are buying from your customers, are buying from people. You have to have that customer journey, staff journey, all mapped out to really enhance that human, just human touch. We have to be good at that. And if you're not good at it, we have to hire somebody who is. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it's so hard, like at the moment with staff and that, attracting and retaining them. If you're not a good employer, they're going to be the first ones to leave when something better comes along. So even down to that level, you've got to be able to inspire the team when times are good and bad, and you've got to recruit them and fire them, and you've got to incentivize them. So there's a lot of managing people. Like we said, it's really the critical thing. And one thing I reckon that probably not many people would consider is, what are your competitors going to do when they see you grow? So you might be, this size now, and you fly under the radar. But if you start growing, some of your bigger competitors may suddenly take notice. Well, they will notice. I'd go as far as to say, and they're going to try to maybe discredit you, and then maybe try to slow down your growth. And they might undercut you with pricing to try to knock you out like that. So just be prepared for a couple of fights along the way.
And that's another thing. And I was really quite naive. Sometimes, because most people believe that the good in people.
Yeah.
You're always a positive thinker. This is a mentality. Everything's going to be great. But I've seen some swipes in my life, intentional swipes by competitors, and that opens your eyes. Opens your eyes.
It? And often really hurts too. It's like, well, we didn't deserve that. Why are they doing that to us? But you'll probably do the same to them if the role was reversed around. And we're all trying to protect our positions and our market share. So it's just be ready for some potential negativity coming from the competition as you stick your head higher and higher into the market that you're in. And
have you had people try to buy you out over the years, Andrew?
Yeah, we've had a couple. We've had, well, I won't say quite a few. We've probably had a handful of people come to us over the years, and some of them big companies, some of them public companies, some of them offshore companies. And then they just go fishing to see whether you're a logical bolt-on. And I've always said the good thing about growing, and the bigger the market share you get in any segment, the more attractive you are for an acquisition by someone really big, like an international or something. So that's the upside of getting bigger.
Yeah, that's the exit plan. It's the exit strategy, right?
Absolutely. And that's important too. We could talk a whole session about that as well. But
I'll book you in. So talk to me about the final thing. Talk to me about the
final thing, the finances. Yes.
Finances.
So be ready to invest in growth. So that could be investing as in just not taking the usual dividends that you have taken over the previous years. That'll probably be the first thing that may suffer. And so that's why it's important to have retained earnings at the start that you can actually draw off. You may have to increase your overdraft, which can make everyone jumpy too, and it potentially put your house further exposed on the line. But whatever happens, very few businesses can grow without some sort of investment, of financial investment on top of the time investment of your own self. But the valley of death that I talk about it, and I look back on the years of Ford and Doonan, and we're going along really well, then we'll grow, and you think, oh, we're going to grow. Let's say we doubled, our profitability should go up 50%, is what we planned. But what happens is you grow, but then the profitability drops, and you go, what's going on here? And it's because of those extra overheads that have to start to creep into your business, like the middle management overheads I'm largely thinking of, or marketing budgets, that suddenly, to keep growing, you've got to keep reinvesting, which means you don't make the same net profit. So it can be very, very disheartening. As you're growing, you're thinking, yeah, we're meeting all our sales targets, but we're making less money. And that's why I call it the valley of death, because a lot of people drop down into this valley, they get scared and they retreat back to where they were before. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's the entrepreneur in you or not. If you really believe that the business plan's there and the profitability is awaiting you, you just have to push through that next thing to grow again. So the overheads become again proportional with your expenses, and your income. So it's always a balance between income and expenses.
And we have heard in many times as well of people who grow to 50 staff, 60 staff, and then decide, nah, I'm not any more profitable than I was when I was a one-man band, or I just had me and two staff. So they intentionally go back and peel down. It's less hassle, it's less stress, it's less people management.
The hair's gone by now.
Yeah. But yeah, people do absolutely revert back.
And there's nothing wrong with going backwards either.
No, not
it's
at all.
not like it's failure. It's a matter of accepting where you're at and what you really want out of this business, because the business is you. If you're not enjoying it anymore, being larger, then get the hell out of there and get smaller again.
So there's a few things in there around the entrepreneur's journey, and some of the levers that we need to look for to put in place so that we can grow. You've spoken or touched on all those different touch points in there. Decide if you are ready yourself. And you've already identified it. It doesn't matter how much you think you can project your future and create this magnificent thing. You're always going to have to do the extra hours. Are you passionate enough about your business, to drive it and to keep driving it and be led by it? And don't be disheartened through the valley of death there.
Yes.
So do you have any other tips for business owners who might be questioning themselves? I'm going to put a timestamp on this interview now. So, we're in WA. The borders are going to open next week. This is the March announcement, not the February announcement. There's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world. What sort of advice would you give to business owners? You've been through peaks and troughs in your 36 years. What sort of advice would you give?
First of all, hold your nerve. I think even if it does get a bit turbulent, the fundamentals of your business, if they're solid, you'll come out of it at the end of it, and you might take a little bit of a step back and some income or something. But whilst there's more risk, many would say, with what's coming in WA, also a great opportunity, because if all your competitors have decided not to grow and to sort of pull back a little and hold their position, maybe a good opportunity for you to actually take the advantage of them being more stagnant. So where there's risk, there's opportunity at the same time. Again, comes back to those courage levels of yours, I guess.
And never waste a crisis.
Never waste a crisis. Easier said than done again, I would say. And of course, everything we've spoken about this morning comes back to business plans. This is all stuff that should form into your business plan and all be considered in the business plan. And we all talk and hear about business plans, but how many people actually have one? Not that many, and they're outdated as soon as they're written effectively. So you always got to keep updating it as well. So all this feeds back into plan it first, plan it well, and make sure it is going to be more profitable on paper before ploughing ahead, because there's going to be a lot more overheads eroding your margins.
Thank you very much, Andrew. As always, lots of things to think about. And every time I speak to you, or we do an interview, or I hear you speak, I've got 2 or 3 things that I'm like, Must go and visit that. Must go and visit that. So I'm sure everybody else who's listening will feel the same. Now, you're going to speak for District 32 on the 17th of March. Is it the 17th? Yep. Thursday, the 17th of March. And you're going to share some of your insights again for business owners. And we're very excited. I always leave your space open because there's always so much Q&A. People just really want to sap you up, like a sponge with the information that you share. With your level of experience, it's just phenomenal amount of information that comes out. So we're really looking forward to that, Andrew. And thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me again, Lorraine.
All good, Andrew. We'll see you again. I'll see you on the 17th.
See you then.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to District 32, Immersion, Inspiration for Ambitious Business Owners with Big Dreams.